How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the James Loud Podcast. And today our special guest is Sergio Picazo from Cultivated and the Connect community. How you doing today, Sergio?
Hey, I'm blessed. Thanks for having me on, James.
Absolutely, man. You have some great events going on. The Connected community and the Connected events are fantastic. I really like the concept. I think it's
Thanks, man.
a modern and fresh version of what other people have tried to do in the past. And I think it works really well with the community, especially in the state we're in. It gets everybody together once a month, and I love it.
Thank you. I mean, that's the goal. We just want to have a safe place for networking and leveling each other up. Education is something that we all want to try to find good information from, and sources is hard to come by. Yeah. So I mean, that's the cool thing, that the people that participate in these panel discussions on whatever topic it might be, they're giving us a lot of great value. So just continue to grow that educational bank is really giving us a proper platform to really start leveling each other up.
And the food is good.
And the food is great.
I'm a food guy. You know, I love good food, and you've always had good food. So
yeah, we've had a bunch of different flavors. And we just had shawarma the other day. We've had artisanal pizza. We've had smash burgers. So yeah, I mean, we definitely have a good variety.
Yeah, there's something to look forward to every month.
Yes.
So let's dive into a little bit about your history. Tell me about the first time you started smoking.
Sure. Yeah. So I was in middle school. It was actually kind of funny. The first time that I thought I smoked, one of the homies actually brought oregano to the party. And let's just say that was not a fun first time experience, but yeah, he definitely didn't make it back into the circle for those in the future. But I actually started smoking. One of the homies' dads had a club card. And so he was always coming to the Oakland shops, and, you know, he always had a good stash of like Northern Lights and Tangy. So like real citrus forward terp profiles. So from the early on days, like I was getting some great flavors. And so that's really kind of what got me into it, was, you know, finding that we had a consistent source, and, you know, being an athlete in middle school, you know, that kind of led into high school being, you know, the athlete plug. So, you know, wanted to smoke for free. So it was a great way to get a zip and, you know, continue to hold back that eighth and just enjoy it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so back then, what were your favorite genetics? What were the favorite? Yeah.
I got to stay, you know, NL5 was probably the one that really resonates with me. You know, it's just so nostalgic.
Yeah.
And, you know, back then, you know, the other homies plugged, like we just had a bunch of, you know, really nice sticky weed coming through, and, you know, we don't really know what the genetics were. We just knew that it was super sticky, and it was the chronic. It was either chronic or it wasn't.
Yeah, we had green and brown.
Yeah.
And there was, you know, the chronic was definitely amazing. So what area was this in?
I grew up in the East Bay. So born in San Francisco, grew up in the East Bay in a town called Danville.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, man, I was blessed to live in that area. You know, there's a lot of it's an affluent area, you know, so I had a lot of.
Yeah, I used to live in Alamo.
Yeah, Alamo's beautiful. You know, blue ribbon school districts. Yeah. And you know, shout out to my parents, because, you know, they both came from Mexico, first generation immigrant. So we really didn't have much growing up, you know, so we were living in San Jose, and, you know, my dad was a garbage man, you know, so he came to this country with nothing and started from the bottom at a garbage company, and eventually got promoted to be a supervisor. So he was able to get us out of San Jose and moved into Danville in 1989.
Yeah, so. Danville's awesome. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough about Danville. You know, I grew up 15 miles away.
Yeah.
So 10 miles away north, and the flower was good. The flower was really good. And I started smoking like 91.
Sure.
But all the flower back then, there was good flower. I mean, obviously there was bad flower too, but you know, it really some amazing stuff. And we had, you know, being in the Bay Area, we had the widest variety of genetics.
We did. You know, you saw the White Widows come through. Mm-hmm. You know, you saw the train wrecks, like all of the, you know, DJ Short's Blueberry.
Yeah.
We had all the schools.
A lot of the stuff was created in California, but we had a lot of the European stuff too. You know, we had the skunks. We had real skunk. We never called it roadkill skunk that I remember, but we had cat piss. And that's a big topic of debate, you know, but the Bay Area cat piss was the real deal.
I don't recall ever getting a chance to try the cat piss back in that era, but you're right. You know, there's a lot of debate around, well, is it just some sort of a profile that happened when it was sitting in the trunk and, you know, something happened along the way? But,
well, I think it's an aroma.
Yeah.
So it's hard to call a genetic cat piss and say I was the one that created cat piss, because I feel like sometimes flower, you know, in breeding, you come across stuff that smells ammonia, and people relate the smell of ammonia to urine.
Right.
And so then we get cat piss. And so I've heard about people talking about cat piss back in the 70s. we're doing a little documentary this year on cat piss. So I'm super excited about that. I feel like there's a lot of origin stories. People have some great stories to tell, and verified stories that are verified from other people as well. And I just reconnected with some of my friends that knew a lot more about the origins of the cat piss that we had. And so I believe there's different cat pisses. I don't think there's just one ring to rule them all.
Right.
So, but there's a lot of Schmeagles out there. So yeah, it's really interesting. So Bay Area, high school, what did you play in high school?
I was
sports?
I was wrestling and football. So,
Nice.
One season ended, the other one started. So,
Yeah.
But it was cool. I was captain of both my teams, and, that really instilled a lot of leadership qualities in me at an early age. So I think that was one of the things that I really enjoyed was people, and just really being able to inspire and motivate has transitioned into my professional career path along all the different industries that I've worked in, from culinary to mortgages to commercial trucking to hospitality, and now, all the way in cannabis and genetics, and, all of these different things have kind of led up to some skill sets that I never would have acquired if I hadn't tasted a lot of different things. So
a lot of people watching the show know I'm a chef, or the ones that don't now, they do. And you have some culinary history. So let's dive into that real quick.
Yeah. So, right out of high school, I knew that I wanted to go into the culinary program here at DVC and
Nice.
in Concord. That was the thing, like growing up in a Mexican household, we were always cooking. So I was always helping my parents prep. I was always helping understand what's going on in the kitchen, because I love to eat.
Yeah.
So that was really inspiring. And, back then there was no Food Network. It was Emeril Lagasse and Yen Can Cook.
Right.
So I wanted to be that next Emeril Lagasse, just really having fun, whipping up cool flavors. And that was the thing. Like we didn't have much growing up. So my mom was always encouraging us to get creative, right?
Yeah.
Open up, we don't have anything to eat. Well, open up the fridge and she'll whip up this badass meal. So that was always like, okay, how can we start to mesh different flavor profiles? So right out of the gate, it's not like I was a bad student. I just wasn't inspired by school. And I think that was part of the reason why I wanted to jump right into culinary, was because I had this aspiration to have my own cooking show and just, really get embedded into the industry.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward. I did the program for about a year and a half. I helped somebody open a restaurant that was actually a graduate from the program.
Nice.
And I saw firsthand how opening a restaurant was. And that is not what I wanted to get into, or that wasn't the life that I wanted. I have a lot of respect for restaurateurs. And, when you're 19, 20 years old and living that kind of a lifestyle, it was a lot. So it opened my eyes to what I didn't want to do. But I learned all these awesome skill sets along the way, with knife skills and how that, the size of a brunoise cut will be able to actually elaborate on your palate, as opposed to a julienne, or these different type of cuts of vegetables. So,
or how important it is to cut your vegetables all the same size.
100% uniformity.
Uniformity is huge. But I feel like the people in the restaurant industry can very easily translate into agriculture or cannabis.
Big time.
And vice versa. They're both industries of passion.
Right.
They should be driven by passion. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make it. And I feel like the culinary arts, it's a young man's career. Especially working long hours. You work on the line. You can do that for a while. I don't think you can do that forever.
Yeah.
Some people can. I have some friends that are chefs that have been chefs forever, and they love it. And it's a lifestyle too.
It
just like this.
is. It's a lifestyle. Exactly. You have to be passionate for what you're doing every single day and just being happy.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized that I was unhappy at certain parts of that career path. And then, it opened my eyes to just tasting things that I know that I don't want to go back to. However, I did walk away from that with, food safety certification, that's where clean behaviors and clean practices have really applied into the nursery space.
Yeah.
And I think that was it was a cultural set, and understanding there's definitely practices within a nursery environment where you don't want to cross-contaminate, that the viroid is crazy, pathogenic pressure is a reality and what we have to deal with today in commercial cultivation. So just, going through a room and defoliating, going plant to plant, whatever was on your hands, you just contaminated that next plant.
Yeah.
Right. So it's, we've already talked about vector transmission and, making sure that you clean your tools properly. Like ISO does not clean and sterilize your tools.
It stabilizes.
Stabilizes the viroid, right? So RNA versus DNA, you got to properly sanitize that.
Right.
2% Virkon, 15-20% bleach, 30 to 60 seconds, scrub and agitate. There's a whole system. So when you're operating at scale, what are these practices that you're implementing with your team? Right. Yeah. So do you have a set of shears per table? Do you have Hand washing stations. Do you require a team to change gloves before they defoliate from table to table? Just things that, you should really be cognizant of, because it's all about the mother stock, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's all about culture, work culture, and people, SOPs are a piece of paper. You got to get people to actually follow the pieces of paper to actually, implement everything that you're talking about and trying to get them to do. That's the only way to really do it. And, it's funny because the kitchen is a great place. They don't have SOPs in the kitchen. They do, but they don't call them SOPs necessarily. But we've been using these things for years.
Exactly.
So at DVC, I used to judge some of the cooking competitions. I was the president of the San Francisco Chefs Association in 2008.
That's cool.
And so, I did a lot of that stuff, and we judge over at DVC, and then they had like the gingerbread houses, and I'm a big gingerbread house guy. I've made some huge, 6 foot tall gingerbread houses and stuff like that.
Nice. So yeah, I mean, the culinary industry was great because, again, I learned a different appreciation for flavor profiling with food and wine, and again, that kind of like led into my passion for genetics and how combining combination of flavors and finding unique combinations, that was a very instrumental part of my foundation.
Nice.
But that moved into mortgages, right? So we had a mortgage broker that was always coming into the restaurant every day, and we chopped it up while I was making his sandwich or his panini or whatever it was going on. And he's like, "Yo, you should probably, I'd like for you to come by my office, talk to me. You're personable." I'm like, "Cool, thanks, man. Do you want pesto sauce on this today?" It's just kind of, It was one of those things where I didn't realize like what was mortgages. I didn't understand what he was talking about. So I went by, he's like, "Yo, I want you to hop on the phones from, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Just cold call." I'm like, "What am I saying?" And so it was just asking people if they're looking to refinance. And that was like the mind map of, okay, yes. Well, what are you refinancing for? Well, I want a lower rate. Okay, well, that's the next set of questions. And then maybe the other question was, well, I want to debt consolidate. Okay, well, next set of questions. Nice. I didn't realize that, solution selling was a thing until I went through and understood how you can offer solutions without selling something.
Right.
So this whole value proposition based selling or, consultative approach was something that I really appreciated, because what I learned in cold calling was some will, some won't, so what, next. But you're still saving money with a solution.
Yeah. And so that's how you evolved into a solutions-based company. Now, I'm a firm believer of being solutions-based. I think you don't need to sell a product if you come up with a solution. You're not, you showcase what you're doing and what you do best and let your product speak for itself.
Right. Exactly. And that's, that was a great learning experience. So, for mortgages, I went into the commercial truck industry, after the crash there, obviously there was a lot of change happening, and, I fortunately was able to sell my house at the time and walk away without going upside down. Wow. So, I was in a blessed situation. Again, my parents are foundational. I've had so much support from them along the way. When they retired in mid 2000s, right around there, they pulled some cash out of the house we lived in Danville. They moved up to Plumas Lake. So I assumed their mortgage, right? Because I was generating income as a loan officer. So I qualified to take on that responsibility. Wow. So I was 22 years old with a mortgage in Danville. And so I learned a lot at that stage. And so.
And that $850,000 house is probably worth about $2.5 million. Right
easily. Yeah. So, and that was the scary part. It's like, oh man, the market, I was about to go upside down. And fortunately, somebody gave us, that break even point. So we accepted it, walked away, started from nothing at that point. Yeah. So, I moved up to to Sacramento. And, my brother was an executive with a company called International Truck and Engine Corporation. And so he was like, "Yo, there's an opportunity up there. You should check it out." You'd be basically being like an assistant to the, the regional director. So I'm like, sure, what does that even mean? Right. So again, I didn't go to college. I didn't get my degree in anything. It was more about finding opportunities that came my way based on who I was and just, putting off good vibes. And ultimately that led me to this particular role, which was really like an engineering role. And so I learned how speccing out commercial trucks with the chassis and the bodies and the engine and the transmission and all these different things that go into specific requiremented, applications, right? The state of California and Vaughn Safeway, that was our two major accounts. So being able to understand how these RFP processes come through and we have to spec out a specific model of a truck, that was some pretty intense engineering stuff, but I'm like, I get this. So it was all computer based, right? So I was a gamer. I was a kid growing up in the 90s. Sega Genesis was something that I invested a lot of time into Nintendo.
Yeah.
And,
what was your favorite game on Sega Genesis?
Oh, Sonic. But then, as I got a little bit older, I went into like Mortal Kombat.
Right.
So, that was the cool thing. Like I picked up some skill sets along the way, and that opportunity actually brought me here to work at a dealership. Offering solutions at scale was another skill set that I just, I really started recognizing that I really enjoyed.
Nice. How did you branch off into the cannabis industry?
So after the commercial trucking industry, I had an opportunity to join a team in the hospitality space. So being like a territory manager, working in the Bay Area, again, like it was a recommendation from one of my brother's friends that he went to school with. It's like, I think you should check out this role. I think you'd be really good at it. It was just, account management, walking into hotels, seeing what kind of products that they sold, and basically, just consolidated all that. So while I was in that role, I learned a lot about, organization and time management, because being able to manage 150 accounts in the Bay Area, you got to be very strategic with your time.
Yeah.
So utilizing technology, and, I was the youngest territory manager in the company out of a team of like 100 different TMs. I was like 24 at that time. And so coming into, the role, all the other sales reps in that company were probably average, 30 to 40 years old. And, that allowed me to kind of shine and show what I did with my organizational skill sets using technology. I think that was the one thing that really wasn't being emphasized, to be efficient in the field. So that led to me getting promoted very quickly to a district manager. And as I was on a ride along in Northern California, we're kind of cruising down the street on the 80, and, I see a billboard for a dispensary. Oh, that's so cool. They're advertising bud up on the billboard. And my rep's like, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but, my husband's in the industry. And I was like, that's awesome. Tell me more. And so that conversation led to an introduction. That introduction led to me investing into that organization. So we had a Prop 215 nursery up in, West Sacramento. And, let's just say that there was a plan to get into the 64 space. That was 2016. So that's when I first got like introduced to the industry at that point. Oh, because I wasn't flipping packs or anything in the past. I was more of, I was selling to smoke for free. Right. So that was never really my world. I'm not trying to claim I was. That wasn't me. Right. But when I saw the genetics aspect of what they were doing, I'm like, cool, you got a nursery. That's awesome. And of course, at the time, like the only visibility that I saw to a nursery were like those YouTube videos that Kevin Jodry put up from Wonderland. Right. And that was pretty badass, for Kevin to like walk us through and showcase what they were doing there. So shout out Kevin, like you truly inspired me, man.
He got the Skittles cut spread out all over from Wonderland Nursery.
That's it.
Yeah. Big shout out to Kevin.
Big shout out to Kev. Yep. And that was my first introduction into the space. Let's just say that project didn't go where it was supposed to. And, I learned a lot from that experience. Yep. It was a very costly experience. So I utilized that and said, you know what, I want to do this. I want to do this the right way. And here's the vision. I want to have an indoor clean nursery with verified trusted cuts, right? And working with the breeders and really making sure that the attribution piece was there. Yeah. And so, basically just started looking around to see if there's any opportunities out there for a building with a CUP. There was nothing like there is today. Like you can just Google, a building with a conditional use permit so you can actually cultivate in state. Nothing like that existed. So
and this was pre-2018?
Yeah, this was like middle of 2017, right around there.
Yeah, so this is like medical about to go rec. Yeah. We know it's going rec, but it was still, it's changed a lot.
Right.
In 6 years. A lot.
Exactly. So, we had an opportunity from, somebody we knew another person that had a building that was offering a lease on a suite within a building with a CUP. So, we checked it out and, we ended up going through with that. But I kind of skipped over like the whole aspect of, we didn't have any investors. I believed in what we wanted to do. So I sold my house. I was living in Walnut Creek. And so I sold my house and, basically funded the build out. And I started Cultivated with 4 other partners, and we each brought our own unique skill sets, to build out the facility, to operate the facility. Mm-hmm. And that was really cool. Like we learned everything from the ground up. Wow. So from the build out phase, like that was a unique experience.
Did it take you twice as long, and was it twice as expensive as you originally thought?
Let's just say we paid the cannabis tax. Yes. My Performa invoice, right? Yeah. I didn't even know what the hell a Performa was. So like I taught myself all these things along the way. And so building out a performa to understand what budgeting was. And I'm like, okay, well, I've got this much capital to deploy in that project. And, of course, it was like 50% less than what I had. And so by the time that the project was actually done, I had invested everything that I had. So I liquidated my 401k. I sold my house. So I even sold my car because we were to that point of like, the build out was so dragged on. And, this was the part of like, going through the Sacramento building division, like, bless their heart, because they want to know, they want to understand what it is that we're trying to do. And, there was a massive delay in like the communication. So they've gotten a lot better, understanding what we do as operators and stuff, but still the build out process was going way too long and we were paying rent the entire time. So I was just hemorrhaging funds.
It's a tough county to do work in. And, I think they've changed a lot in the last 6 years, but it's definitely, to break into that area is tough.
Right.
The power company there is no joke. It's much different than other parts in California.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
A lot of fun, man. So, we fortunately were able to get all the sign-offs and everything. So I remember Christmas Eve on December of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
We had gotten our inspection finalized. We already had plants in. So, I wanted to give a shout out to Dan at Node Labs because, I saw this post from Kevin Jodry that he was at the Emerald Cup with Node and tissue culture. I'm like, what the hell is tissue culture? That's really where the idea of having this trusted, healthy, clean nursery with verified cuts was formed. So I just hit Dan up on a DM and he responded. I'm like, oh shit, like this is happening. So we really developed a relationship from there and just explained to him like, look, man, we don't want to get into the TC side. We just want to be a propagation nursery, a trusted start for people,
right.
And just doing it the right way and just, emphasizing relationships. And we're not just a transactional company. Like we're part of your business. We're an extension of your farm. So it worked great. We brought in all of our genetics from TC. So Gen 0, and we were selling first gen cuts. That's how Cultivated was born. Mm. So, the real special part was like, we did this all ourselves. Like me and my partners and my mom and dad, like my mom and dad were so supportive. Like they didn't want to get paid. They were there helping out. They were, my dad was there on Christmas Eve cutting clones, our very first batch of clones on Christmas Eve. And I will never forget that moment. And I was like, this is happening. I've gone all in, they didn't like harass me or anything. Like, what are you doing? Like going and doing something you've never done. You just literally liquidated your entire life savings into something that you've never done before. So it was cool. They were just hella supportive. And ultimately, like they were the ones that were sitting on that prop table, cutting, propping thousands of clones. Nice. So from the very get-go, like my parents were in there, they were grinding with us. And, there came to a point where we were really getting scale. And so we had to hire employees. And I'm like, guys, you have to get paid. Like legally, you need to get paid here. So, it was cool. So my parents were our first employees of Cultivated Genetics. That's where the familia came into play.
Really cool.
Yeah, man. And, and they've been super foundational in everything that I've done. So I couldn't be more grateful.
Are they still working with you?
No, my parents are retired. They put in their time and, fortunately Cultivate is on a good pathway right now and really stabilized.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the genetics you guys have that you're excited about.
James, I would love to say that we had a more diverse profile of a library, but got to give the market what they want. That's candies, from a commercial perspective, like
purple, candy, gas.
You got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, we've had a very diverse library, like really cool flavors from Compound, from Midwest Best, from Full Moon Genetics. Like we've got some great genetics that we've ran through, but, as I've been connected with, the commercial cultivators in the bulk space and a lot of the wholesale buyers, I've got to see a lot of the demand and what the requests are. Yeah. We're not fighting it. It's commercial right now, bulk candy. That's it.
So when I was in culinary school, I was told the best marketing strategy is give the baby what the baby wants.
Correct.
Right. And so the baby being all of our customers and whatever they want, they want purple candy gas right now.
That's it.
It won't be like that forever. I don't believe that. I think gas is coming back. I think sour's coming back. I think interesting genetics beyond the purple candy gas are making a comeback. The piff, we're going to get some hazes coming back. And I think this stuff takes time and, there's ebbs and flows. And, we're just in the purple candy gas phase, and we've been through other phases before, and this too shall pass.
Of course. And, we're leaning into it. We've been working with the Good Greens candy collection.
Yeah.
Shout out Joe and Phil from Good Greens. Like, we're taking candy and just giving it a twist. So we're finding a lot of great keepers coming out of there with very low intersex traits, by the way. Because when you start going through the population of, a lot of gelatos and just crossed within, like, intersex traits are a challenge. So fortunately, we've had these things tested with a bunch of different cultivators in our community, and we're seeing some really good results. We've got some great selections. We're actually harvesting on Monday.
Nice.
Up at Cush Alley. We're down in Cush Alley. So really happy to see what we're gonna get coming out here and get those new flavors out there.
Yeah. So stress testing is a big, important thing that I don't think a lot of people are doing enough of,
Correct.
Although that's changing. I think there's awareness now, at least.
For sure.
And just because one of the parents has it doesn't mean it'll get passed on and expressed heavily.
Right.
But you need to stress test it and find out. I think those are the type of things, especially for commercial viability. If you're a home grower, it's not as big of a deal. You go buy some 10-pack of seeds and a couple of them have intersex traits, and you find something that you really like that's amazing. I think there's some really good cultivars as far as taste and appeal. Mm-hmm. But on a commercial scale, it's a little bit different, right? So like when somebody has 100 lights of one thing or even 10 lights, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want a bunch of seeds.
Of course.
One seed is not a big deal. A bunch of seeds is an issue.
Stress testing is massive, right?
It's massive.
Commercial viability and really understanding, we have a bunch of different cultivators in the network that want to help test with us, that want to be a part of the journey. Yeah. And I think people saw that with the Glitter Bomb project that we did. Releasing Glitter Bomb in a fashion.
Glitter Bomb's pretty cool. We had Caesar on the show.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Shout out to Caesar. Like we saw how this project can work where, you get something really cool and special out to the group of people. We all grow it. We showcase, the genetic potential of this thing. But again, kind of coming back to the whole stress testing, there's specific facilities that have their challenges. So I want to make sure that they get their rounds with it too, because that's going to give us certain environmental condition challenges, certain inconsistencies with a lot of different factors. So stress testing is massive, man. And that's what comes back to us and really what goes into the TC lab. What's going to go through meristem, because that's costly, right? You got to invest into that stuff. Yeah,
the meristem, it's super important to get it down to the callus and then replicate and clean it and then be able to replicate from that. And I think the cleaning part is challenging and there's not a lot of people that can do it. Shout out to Apical Biotech, Justin over there and Matt. Sir. Those guys are doing the Lord's work in so many ways.
Yes.
They're our business partners and your business partner as well. And really good stuff. And I think that people don't fully have a grasp on what tissue culture is necessarily. But what they're doing is something special, and it's a little bit different than doing nodal. It's a little bit different than the stuff you can do at home. But that's the future. And also pathogen indexing is so important, right? So like we get into pathogen indexing and being able to verify that your stuff is clean and being able to show your customers that it's clean.
Right.
All that stuff is huge.
It's massive. And I'm glad you touched on the difference of what nodal versus meristem is. Yeah. I mean, not a lot of people can do meristem. And I think that's the reality. People think that they're getting their genetics fully clean and restored when they're just getting nodally propagated, which there's a use for nodal.
There's benefit to it.
Absolutely.
Sure.
But it's not getting down to the cleanest form of that meristem. Right. Yeah. So that's the kicker right there. So being able to find the winners that we want to be able to commercialize and really put out to scale. Because again, the commercial validation process takes time. This is not just an F1 release.
This stuff takes years to actually do variety testing and phenotypic studies. It takes a year minimum to properly do it and to get your selections and to prove them. And, I think a lot of people, they find something good and then they release it and, and that's okay too. But I think the real process takes a lot longer and it's a marathon and not a sprint. So.
No doubt. But, I hope that the professional maturity of the industry does gravitate towards more gas and, all these great flavors that we want to bring back and unique complexity. Because right now it's just candy, and understanding that it's we're not fighting it. We're making sure that the cultivators that we work with are positioned for the best possible outcome with the highest ticket. So really emphasizing quality, and I think that's what we were kind of talking off the mic was we have tools like shout out to Arroya that has this tool that we can measure and, substrate water content and EC, and making sure that we're in the parameter of an irrigation strategy for a small bud trait like a candy.
Yeah.
Right. So we want to make sure we can hit these optimal yields with quality emphasis.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to deploy genetics that have irrigation strategies is important. That's why I handle all the sales at Cultivate, because I want to make sure people are getting what they what they should be geared for. So if you're calling me up and saying, hey, what do you got on the menu? I'm going to ask you one question. Are you just selling in the bulk market? Because if you are, I'm only going to offer you White Runcer Lemon Cherry Gelato, or soon to come G33. And, just being able to just have that on the menu and be able to say, this is how you can irrigate it to, get your 80 grams a square foot with quality behind it. We got buyers asking, where's this stuff at? Who's got the fire?
Yeah.
Now it's a battle of quality, and there's price points for everything. So,
well, I think more breeders need to start sneaking in stuff and crossing them with the candy, not tricking people, but at the same time, reintroducing those flavors in something that's approachable.
No doubt.
That's what I'm looking forward to. And I think people are starting to do it. I think we're getting a lot of interesting expressions coming out, and that gets candy along with some other funk. That's not just GMO.
Mm-hmm.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. Donnyburger, GMO, I think those are great. I think they have their place for sure.
They do. Yeah. But you're right about the uniqueness of flavor profiling. And I think we also touched on that earlier, was like, there's so many different flavors, subjective flavor profiles, but we can really hone in on certain things when we're hunting through the progeny, finding that unique twist on the candy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the Good Greens Candy Collection has that new age twist of candies.
Yeah.
So, we're excited to be hunting through this stuff. And I know that seed release is coming in the near future, but, I'm excited for the future of the genetic breeding projects that are all going on. I mean, you've got a lot of great work too. I would love to get a pheno or two from from your bank that we can put in and let the market enjoy, because you got a lot of great Z crosses that are productive, that are mold resistant, that have vigor, that fit the 9-week window. There's a lot of stuff that I would love to bring in from you.
Yeah, we're working on some stuff that's way less than 9 weeks,
Nice.
which I think has a lot of commercial appeal. But yeah, I think right now you just got to fit that specific profile. It's got to be candy.
Mm-hmm.
Color is in demand. Like,
Right.
if it doesn't have color, it's so funny because I feel like that being a qualifier is just, we want all these things, and it's almost counterintuitive.
Sure.
So especially if you like flavor, I don't know. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, man. Again, this kind of goes back to the commercial validation aspect. If it doesn't fit within at most that 9-week window, I mean, you're trying to get those 5.5 turns a year, right? I mean, if it doesn't fit within that window, then, and if irrigation strategy is just such a hard thing to accomplish within your facility, and you can't manage without measurement. So if you're not on any substrate monitoring or sensor tech implementation, good luck.
So I got an interesting question the other day about, when do you start counting days of flower? And I've always counted from the day you flip the lights. That's the first day of flower.
When you go photo period, 12/12.
Some people, they start counting from the first day you see actual flowers on the buds. And I thought that was really interesting, because there's this big confusion, and either way could be right as long as you're doing it consistently that way. I mean,
exact consistency is key. However you're tracking or managing whatever time frame it is, I'm just looking at from when you go 12/12 to full maturation at harvest. Right. So whether you're going, 7 to 10 days on your stretch period, and you're going generatively, and you're flipping back to bulking at like week 3, or maybe even if you're dealing with candies, you're shortening up that window and flipping to bulking at day 14.
Trying to finish at day 53.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's because I feel like Skittles, that's like day 53 to day 56. If you go to day 63, it's okay. And it's got some interesting flavor, but it's not as candy as if you pull it somewhere between day 53 and day 56.
And if you let it go a little bit longer, you're going to have more of an overripened, terp profile.
Right.
And that's good criteria to let the cultivator know. It's like, if you're growing this, these are the things that you need to look out for. If you're going to be washing this, maybe you need to pull it a little bit earlier. Yeah. Right. So some of those genetic profiling tips is what we're emphasizing. That's where just having a manageable ERP and database to manage these recipes and to be able to deploy them at scale. That's that's why it's great having these systems in place. Right.
It's really all about data points with everything in life, whether you're cooking. The culinary world totally translates to cannabis in the sense of developing a palate. Right. And I have my book coming out, and there's a whole chapter on developing a palate. But it's just collecting a bunch of data points. And the more data points you start to understand it better, the more times you've experienced it, you understand what you like, what you don't like. It's like rose. I love the rose terps, right?
Mhm.
Like rose is amazing, but it's not just one thing. We have rose petals, we have rose water,
Yep.
we have, there's so many different roses. Like
Right.
literally there's fresh rose off the stem. There's more floral side to it. And there's 5 different or 6 different roses that I can think of right off the top of my head.
That's it. And starting with your core base of fruit, floral, fuel, and earth, right? Like where do you branch off from there and finding unique within those criteria points? So no, that's really, I want to come back to your book, man. Like I know we've been talking about Barcelona coming up and, I'm blessed for the opportunity that the Connect community is growing at such a pace that we have support to get it out to Barcelona.
Yeah.
So, we've been talking about, doing a collaboration and doing your book signing at the Connect event on March 15th.
Yeah.
At, doing that stuff too. So
it's a perfect place, perfect time. I love Barcelona. You get the real cannabis enthusiasts, people who love flower,
right,
love the industry. They're very passionate people at Spanibus. And that's what I love about Spanibus the most. And to be able to bring my book there and to share it with people from all around the world, that's great. To work together, on a Connect event, I think that'd be a fun thing for sure. And Spanibus is just, it's my favorite event of the year.
Sure.
So,
this will be my first time, so I'm really excited to get out there and yeah, man, just really exploring and getting more perspective. That's
Spanibus, that whole time, the trip just checks all the boxes. You got good food, you got good people, you got cannabis, you got people with ideas and concepts from all around the world that you're hearing about new things.
Right.
Trends work differently in different places. I feel like a lot of people follow suit from what's going on in the Bay Area, but that's not the case always anymore. I feel like people are starting to do stuff all over the world that can impact what we do here in the States.
No doubt. And you just touched on something that made me like really excited about the topics that I've seen a lot of people come out to.
Yeah.
This past Tuesday up in Sacramento, at Unearthing Hydro, we had over 250 people show up for the Arroyo Office Hours Live discussion on crop steering, and that was, it was a Tuesday night. Like this is the biggest turnout we've ever had in Sacramento. And, we've been doing these events for a few years now. So I'm just super grateful for the people that have put their hands in to help make this production occur. It's a small team. Like we're really starting to build this thing out and, to find topics like this that we can take across the globe, whether it's Barcelona or Thailand or Colombia or wherever it is that we want to do more events. That's the goal, is to help unify everybody with education and be able to provide this network and, just cross-pollinating. That's the biggest thing, is I want to get more perspective and bring awareness so that we can just grow better tree. That's it.
The king of cross-pollination. There you go.
There you go.
No, I think that's great, man. I think it's an interesting time to be alive. It's an interesting time to be in this industry. I think times are tough for some people. Times are not tough for other people, but it's really an interesting place. We're in an in-between time. I guess we're always in an in-between time because we're ever evolving. And with technology now, we're growing exponentially. Things are changing. AI and probability and these AI models for the future of breeding it's just really wild. The potential that AI has to be able to contribute. Right.
Trait libraries and markers, everything. And not to go too far off track, but like we understand that gene editing is here. Like there's certain levels of understanding and professional maturity, again, with that space specifically, because we already know what happened in the past. So we have to understand that there's definitely layers to what's happening. You can do this stuff responsibly, and being able to find pathways to improve the plant, make it as healthy as possible so that you don't have to worry about, PM or all these other things that might occur.
Marker-driven breeding is just amazing. The potential, especially powdery mildew resistance.
For sure.
I mean, how many of us have had issues with powdery mildew? If you're a person anywhere in the world that's grown that's humid, that is humidity, you're going to have PM issues at least one point with one cultivar in your life,
Genetics that are, bred in Thailand are going to you're going to find a much more resistant cultivar to PM that it's hunted in Thailand. Right. So this 100% humidity factor, that's a big deal. Carpinteria, just right here in Southern California coastline, you've got 100% humidity for like 4 or 5 months out of the year. It's crazy.
It's a great place to identify varieties that don't have issues with powdery mildew or botrytis.
And this goes back to commercial testing, right? Validation and verification of these genetics before these get released. We have to understand, if something is susceptible, I'm not going to recommend that to a company out in Thailand, right? I think that's just one of those things that comes back to being responsible in the curation phase, right? The actual, the phenotyping, just making sure that you're capturing all these data points. And this comes back to data, right? Managing.
Lots of data points.
You cannot manage without measurement, and being able to track and manage all this stuff, which is, a big reason why Cultivate IQ is in development right now.
Yeah.
We've got this solution that's being built by cultivators for cultivators. And then you start tapping in all these different variables from pheno hunting to, POS, retail, supply chain,
right?
All these different solutions, right? And so, shout out to Mo Khorshid, like he's developed a lot of data within a system that we're actually using for projects that we're consulting with on other operations that are using this information to keep track of stuff, to make sure that we're managing it with measurements, to make adjustments accordingly.
Yeah.
But really what's cool about that, James, is like I've seen so many operators have a disconnect in communication from the cultivation team to the owners or the financial people holding the bills. Like it's very difficult for a lot of these operators to have that discussion of why we're not hitting better yields, why we're not having a higher ticket on our packs. Right. Well, sometimes it's not as easy to communicate that environmental challenges lead to, transpiration challenges, which is why we're getting lower yields, or our quality is not as good because we're having these massive VPD swings and we have PM, or all these things happen when the person writing the check for the bills and doesn't want to make the investment on these improvements to the facility, or maybe different tools, or maybe you're not using sensors to monitor your drybacks. All these factors, that's where you're able to bridge the gap communication. So truly emphasizing on this tool that's really going to centralize the communication gap and the barrier is what we're excited about, because it's working. We're already using this at multiple facilities. So, as we continue to work and develop on this thing, it's going to be more user friendly and, ultimately just bring that solution to table.
Yeah. Really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just the future is looking bright in a lot of ways. I think some people see the grim side. I try to be an optimist all around. But yeah, technology is going to have its benefit for sure.
It will.
Well, and if we collect enough data, that's just a given, right?
No doubt. And, that's the thing. You have to have the right team in place, right? Having people that are committed to data collecting and, making it easy to collect data. Like that's the functionality. Like there's plenty of great software solutions out there. Yep. And, really understanding why you're doing something and why you're having that soft cost dedicated towards data capturing. There's got to be a reason behind it. So,
well, and it grows exponentially. The value grows exponentially. So the first year of collecting data, you might not get that much value. But if you look over a period of 5 years and you can go back where you've grown something out multiple times in multiple places, you can really start identifying the value of it.
Production value at scale. Absolutely. And just understanding what you maybe should or shouldn't be growing.
Also developing breeding lines, right?
100%.
So developing breeding lines, that it takes data to really do it.
It certainly does. And, I built my own ERP for Cultivated. I've explored a number of different out-of-the-box services, and nothing really got down to the intricacies of what I was trying to track and manage, right? I know every single clone comes off of every single plant. I know every data point that you can imagine. I've tracked and managed it because I built it. I understood that there was a certain level of criteria that it wasn't an out-of-the-box solution. So I really had to find a way to make sure that I can build that while we're building up this, this massive database of genetic library information, so that we know that if this is coming back into rotation, we can know how many clones it's going to produce. Right. All this different stuff. What is the pathogenic pressure? When's the viral load actually start to express?
What does it actually cost to produce a clone?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And so, just making sure all the plant stock, like we test our moms once a month. There's multiple types of testing. Leaf with root, leaf only, root only, combination of two. Like there's maintenance testing and there's like intake testing, right? So making sure that you do have a full data point on like that plant.
So are you guys doing in-house testing, or do you send out for third party?
We send out for third party, and I've worked with a number of labs, a lot of amazing labs that I think deserve some credit. Like, Jeremy Warren over at the Dark Heart Nursery Lab out in Davis. He's done some fantastic work. ALNL Crop Solutions out in Vacaville. Annalisa's, fantastic, wonderful resource. And MyFlora DNA. They've really found their pathway to bring rapid analytics at a cost-effective solution. And so, I love working with multiple labs, but ultimately just holding ourselves accountable. I want to know when there's a potential pathogenic pressure hit. So, and again, going back to data, we know how to track and batch track to make sure that we do have the proper protocols in place to eradicate and make sure that we can go back and track what's going on.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the future. That's the future. That the nursery model's changed so much over the last 10 years. You know, it's really wild. And the availability of testing now is like, you know, anybody can get their stuff tested technically.
Don't doubt. I mean, you just get a vial, you take your leaf punches, and you get your results back in a couple of days, if not sooner. If you're like, you know, really on the horn and be like, hey guys, this is an emergency. You know, can you please see if there's an opportunity to maybe expedite this? Right. You know, you can mail that back and forth and you're good to go.
Yeah. Really cool. So where do you see the industry in 5 years?
Currently, right now, I think we're in a very interesting point of compression. So I think there's a lot of alignment that is going to occur. And I think that the future, obviously with legalization happening on the forefront, you know, there's so much potential to have organized groups that are in the craft market or that are at the full scale market. So we know what's going to happen there. You know, I would love to see the craft brewery model. You know, I would aspire to see something very cool like that. But, you know, there's just so much opportunity here that's happening. But ultimately, it comes back to professionalism. How many people are going to make it through that are not professionally mature in this industry? And this comes back to good people and good practices. Right. So being driven by the P&L is very difficult to do when when you have moral ethics. And I think a big part of this is around, like, who do you work with? Who do you surround yourself with? Why do you want to continue on this pathway? Like, why are you really here? Do you truly have passion for this plant? And I think that's a big part of where we're heading in this future is we're going to start to see some people drop off that are in this for the wrong reasons. Yeah. You know, like I may not have grown up on the hill and you know, dedicated my life to it back then, but I'm here now. And I've gone all in. All my chips are in the center. Yeah. And so I'm here to help. And I think that's really what I enjoy about the industry of where we're heading is, again, like growing the Connect community has given me so much fulfillment, and being able to educate people, bringing on experts to talk about what their experience has been. So that's the future I want to see is more collaboration, collaboration over competition. And, you know, growing together is really the emphasis.
Well, and you got to look, the ones that are left, you know, I've already seen a lot of people fall off. The people that are left are really passionate people for the most part. Right. And we're collaborating with each other. We need to collaborate with each other and we need to work together. I think that is the best way. If you want to build a small business, that is the best way, is through collaboration. We're not in competition with each other. A lot of people see this competition side of it, but that's not what it is. We need to work together so we can improve the quality of what we're doing, and we can build the people up around us that are doing similar things.
James, you know what, the one thing that I learned about this whole thing, or about myself throughout this entire journey, is what I'm not good at and what I don't want to spend time on because it makes me unhappy or whatever it might be. So I surround myself with the people that complement my skill sets. Yeah. And I think that's really important when you start to look at the future and where you're starting your business, or maybe aligning and merging with another business partner. Picking your partners is very difficult. And I don't think you really understand what it's going to mean until you really start getting into a partnership and understanding that everybody has their own skill sets. Now, where your skill sets may be limited is perspective of your partners. And so whether it's going through and really aligning myself with people that supplement these other, aspects of what I'm not good at. I'm not a good software developer, even though I, taught myself how to use AI and do all my marketing and, all this stuff. That doesn't mean that I can code. Right. So being able to put, this ERP together, and like, shout out Mo, Mo really did create a very special platform that we're really working and emphasizing on.
That is the best part of, in my opinion, that is the best part of the legal market, is that we can become specialists in whatever we're really good at. And before, you kind of had to do everything. You had to be if you're a grower, you had to do everything. You had to be the electrician. Yeah. I mean, we did extract, we did cultivation, and now you can be a specialist. You can move forward as a specialist. If you're really good, you will never have a problem getting work.
For sure.
You will always have a job if you're really good at what you do. And so if you can become a specialist, the best, whether it's an extract artist or an electrician, or you're going to be a cultivator, or you're going to be a breeder, if you are the best at that, if you are in the very top percentile, you are going to be successful. And that's the beauty of where we're at now. And I mean, some people, you get mixed opinions on everything, but I feel like in my opinion, that is one of the best things from recreational is we can really become specialists. We can really work on improving the plant.
Couldn't agree more, man. And you don't have to have a cultivation facility to be in the industry. Look at these curators, these tastemakers, these people that have such refined palates.
Yeah.
You know, like that there's a lot of room for opportunity in this space and really focusing on what makes you happy.
Yeah. If you're good at sales, you can do sales, you know.
Right.
The brokers can evolve into being brokers in the regulated market too. And I mean, I think there's potential for growth as long as you're passionate and you love what you're doing and you become a specialist, you become really good at that, you are going to be successful.
Consistency.
You know? Well, and it doesn't mean that you had to have God-given talent. You can just get up every day and work hard and be successful. Yeah. So that's the thing is like, sometimes it's about falling down 7 and getting up that 8th time to be successful.
Having gratitude for the gift of work. You know, that was something that was instilled in me at a very young age. You know, my mom and dad were entrepreneurs, and my dad, you know, coming, you know, into this world, into the United States with, you know, with nothing, no education, you know, it was incredible to see like how work ethic was instilled in us at a very early age, and just being grateful for what we have. Like not a lot of people have opportunity to work. So
no, and if you're willing to grind, you're going to be okay, you know? And it's like, you gotta look past all the bullshit and figure out what to focus on. I mean, I think being spread out and having too many focuses can be negative too. Like
it's gonna
day and age
disallow you to follow through on your commitments.
Totally.
And that's James, that's what I'm seeing a lot of, right?
Yep.
It's unfortunate to see how many people are casting their net as wide as possible and not following through on their commitments.
Yeah.
You know, just keep it narrow, understand what makes you happy, right? Getting up and what drives you. If you have so many projects going on that you don't know what to focus on, you should probably step back and audit what the hell you're doing. You really want to find what makes you happy and what makes you tick and make sure that you're on that right path.
Yeah, there's like the Japanese principle of Ikigai, which is like what you're good at and what you're passionate about and how that crosses over. And it's about finding that perfect balance. And life is about balance, you know, and life is about hard work. And you know, when they said life was easy, they lied to you. Life is not easy. There's, you know, I think there's times where life can be easy, and some people, they want to strive for life, but I get more gratification from the struggle.
Sure.
So, you know, and it's really interesting. You start, as we get older, we start learning about different philosophies and different principles, and we start developing our own ideas of what happiness is and what success is. I think when I was younger, when I was 18, I thought success was a lot different than how I see it now.
Success is being happy with the people you love and care about.
Yeah.
I truly think like, you know, memento mori, death is inevitable.
Right.
So just having this like weird psychological understanding that death is coming, but appreciate what you have and just be grateful for where you're at.
Like seize the moment. And
I mean, dude, how many hours a day are we on this thing just glued to our attention, right?
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst.
Present, it's the best and worst present that we ever have. But just spending this time together, and I haven't looked at my phone this entire time. It's like, I really engage and I really like that connection that we have, because people that come around your life, you either get good vibes or you get this, you know, we didn't really connect. Yeah. And so, you know, that's what good business partnership, like to me, really means. You've got a good connection. You're able to validate certain things. You're able to tell me if something's completely off. I'm going to be candid about that. Yeah. You know, there's a term called kind candor that I truly believe in. I'm going to tell you fucked up because I care about you and I don't want you to make that same mistake.
Absolutely.
And tell me the same thing, you know?
Yeah, that's what you expect out of your real friends. Yeah. You know, honesty, you know, it comes down to integrity and honesty. And those are like the most important things in business.
Of course. And there's no blueprint to what we're doing here. You know, that's the biggest part around like collaboration and, you know, just being able to truly lean into our strengths. And it's like, yo, dude, I've gone down this pathway. Like you should probably take a look at this perspective because here's the mistakes that I made. And there's certain people that just don't want to see that or hear it. And unfortunately, like that's why you got to start auditing your inner circle of really who you're spending time with and how much time you're dedicating to that. There's a ton of time vampires out there.
Oh yeah. Time bandits. We call them time bandits. Yeah. So it's funny, but they say that you are, a reflection of your 5 closest friends. So if you really want to look at yourself, look at your 5 closest friends, and that's pretty much who you are. You're an average of the 5 closest friends that you have, or 5 business people that you associate with the most. And I totally think that's true.
Yeah, man. You're impacted by perspective, and that's, you know, that there's only so much time in the day. So
Yeah. And I'm so blessed. I have a lot of good people in my life. I have a lot of good influence, a lot of good friends, people that really give a shit.
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's what counts. It's like, that's what keeps me going even through the tough days. Cause there's tough days.
Of course.
There's always going to be tough days and there's always going to be good days. And they're just going to keep going through, till we're gone.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, James. And I really enjoy seeing like all these brands that you have up on your wall here, man. Like you've got a great network. You've clearly done a lot with a lot of good people. And that's something like, as we start to build and, grow together, like that's what we can do to continue evolving. And what's innovation? Like what you showed me earlier on your, on your pheno hunting project that you've got going on with the software, like that's dope. Like I instantly started thinking like, how do we work together on that side to incorporate it with what we're got going on over here?
I'm ready.
Cultivate
I'm
IQ,
super ready. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like there's good business to be had. There's a ton of opportunities. So fast forwarding to the future, right now is the time to look at, good actors and bad actors and
absolutely
auditing that process.
And they stand out and somehow the bad actors every once in a while get back into the mix and then they, they last for a little while, but times are tough.
Sure.
But the beauty of this podcast is that we're recording oral history of the cannabis industry, right? Of what's going on. And, I've had some guys, Richard DeLisi, who did 32 years in prison. He's one of my good friends. And we just did an interview with Luke Scarmazzo, who did 14 years, to get us to the kind of point we're at. But like this podcast, I imagine that 50 years from now or 75 or 100 years from now, maybe even 200 years from now, people are going to want to know, how the heck did it get to this point?
Sure.
And what were they doing that was so crazy back then? And we're able to touch on that and kind of share our stories. And it's amazing having people like yourself on this podcast that can kind of share their stories. And, who knows, maybe we'll do another podcast in a year or 2 years and the industry will be completely different.
Couldn't agree more, man. It's, this is the origin story of where we're at in the industry.
Yeah.
We've all, clearly there's a bunch of people that have paved the way and given their lives for people like myself to come into this as an opportunity and like really understand, like, this is what I want to do and bring value in a certain way that, that I felt that I could.
Yep.
There's a lot of gratitude for that. And shout out to everybody that is still fighting the good fight. And, I really hope that we can get everybody out of prison for marijuana related crimes. Like this is just
absolutely. It doesn't make sense.
It
doesn't make sense that we're able to be here and contribute and pay taxes on all this stuff. And there's people in prison for doing what we're doing now legally.
Non-violent cannabis crimes. Like, come on, like get these people out, please.
They are getting them out, but it's taken a lot longer than it should, unfortunately.
So again, I'm grateful that we're here, you know, and I think there's just a lot of opportunity collaborating with good people moving forward. And, if I can just say anything to the community and people that want to get into the industry, it's just be humble, get in, experience things for yourself, because understanding what you don't want to do is something that you're never going to experience until you try it. Because especially in cultivation's hard work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of cleaning.
You might think a lot, and that's how it goes in life. There's a lot of things. It's trial and error. You might think you really want to do it until you do it. And then you're like, hell no, I don't want to do that.
And this is where, leaders, building good teams, it's like, you got to stay present with the people that you work with, and having these quarterly collaborations. I hate the term review. I don't do reviews. I want to make sure that we can block out time every quarter. So James, I can hear you. I want to understand what challenges you're having.
Right.
I want to understand what makes you unhappy, because ultimately when you start working in an environment that makes you happy and you're dedicated to come in every day, like there's farms that we've worked with that you can see the transition of like, I want pride. I want to have pride in the flower that we're growing, because I want to take that flower and I want to be representing that. Yeah. That's the flower that we grew.
I want to show it to all my friends and show them that I was part of this.
Absolutely.
And that's the beauty of it. Cause it's an experience too. So we're sharing an experience with the people around us. And that's the beauty of that's part of the reason you and I are both here, is because we're able to share this experience with people around us.
No doubt. And, a big part of that comes back to, leaders and understanding if you're a good leader or you have opportunity to grow as a leader and being able to put somebody in a role and understanding what their succession plan looks like.
Well, once you got it all figured out, you got a problem. If you think you've got it all figured out, you got to be able to reevaluate everything and be able to look at it from an outside perspective a lot of times.
Be true to thy own self, and I think that's a big part of like continuing to grow and, just what are the iterations of yourself and how do you want to continue progressing? And that's like, again, why building a strong team starts with communication.
Yeah.
I want to understand what makes you unhappy. Maybe you're in the wrong role. Maybe this just is not the right career path for you, which is totally fine too. Or maybe you need to go into retail, or maybe you need to go into extraction, whatever it might be.
Totally. I have no problem firing people, by the way, because I feel, and I learned this in being a chef.
Yes.
Was that, at first it was tough for me to fire people, but I think it's important to fire people and let people go if they don't fit, because they belong somewhere else, and you're holding them back by not letting them go. You're holding them back from whatever their destiny is.
Couldn't agree more. And taking accountability, me as your leader that brought you into this, I think I may not have given you enough time to really develop your skill set that I initially saw during the application process, during that onboarding time. Right. So, just understanding what people's strengths are, and you don't know unless you make time. So these quarterly collaborations, what do you want to do? How far out do you want to get into this? At the nursery, you're limited to what you can get into, right? There's only so many departments that we have in propagation. But as you start to develop, well, now that I've seen the nursery side, maybe I want to get into flower. So guess what? I got a network of bunch of cultivators. Say, hey, I got this person that really wants to get into flower. I'm the first person to make that recommendation. And, and if somebody's unhappy, I'm the first person to write that letter of recommendation to get into somewhere else. Right. Because I know what I hired them for. Like that's the part around leadership that people are just overlooking. It's like, listen, just talk to your team. We're there, you're here with us. This is that's kind of why, my name, the custodian, kind of came out. I'm not afraid to clean shit up. I work underneath everybody to make sure people are successful and happy doing what they're doing.
Nice. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So if you had one piece of advice for yourself that was just starting out in the industry, that you could go back and talk to yourself, what would that be?
I don't have any regrets about anything that I've done. I think everything happens for a reason. I think advice to myself, I'm just be more open-minded, I guess, because truly I've done a lot that I'm proud of, and I've done a lot of iteration and self-growth, because this is not easy. There's no blueprint. Like I've taught myself a lot throughout this industry, and really understanding how certain things that I needed to do to build a business. And, I've got a great network of people that have helped me along the way. Nice. I think that's the biggest thing, is just this is kind of funny, because like my dad, coming from Mexico, he's always like, don't trust anybody. Every time I'm leaving, he's like, don't trust anybody. Like, my pops, what are you talking about, man? Like, and obviously he had his own experiences, but sure. I always took that with a grain of salt, because it's like, be cautious. But I also did the opposite. I'm like, you have my trust until you show me I can't trust you, to a degree, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that was the one thing that, working in genetics and being able to work with a ton of cultivators that were, calling us to buy cuts. It's like, I got to work with a ton of great people. And I also got the exposure of a lot of people that took advantage of my kindness. Mm-hmm. And so, not to the degree of like, we're closing the business down, but just knowing that there was people that are trying to take advantage because their back's up against the wall. And I think you mentioned this earlier, like people do some shitty stuff when their back is up against the wall. And I think that's just something we have to be cautious with.
Right. Yeah. Well, if somebody is trying to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
I'm pretty active on Instagram, so Sergio_the custodian is my direct handle. I also manage the Cultivated genetics handle and the Connect community handle. All of those are at those specific words. I'm pretty accessible, guys. Like, I'm here to help. I mean, if you really want to come, I encourage you to come out to these Connect community events. If you go to our website or you go to our Instagram page, there's a link in the bio that's got everything you need to know about our events, the RSVPs, the YouTube channel to watch all the different panels that we've put together. I encourage, like right now, people think it's just for cultivators. I'm like, no, bud tenders need to get to these things.
Everybody, if you love cannabis and you want to learn more about it, it's a great event. It's a great place to meet other people in the industry as well. I mean, there's the whole aspect of that alone is amazing.
Thank you, James. And I'm proud of what the community is really supported. And that's really what's happening, is we want to network. We want to level each other up. So I just encourage everybody to come out, every month in Sacramento, and we're starting to branch off. We're doing LA on the 22nd of February for Salt Wars. Nice. That should be fun.
I may come down there with books. You never know.
Perfect, man. Yeah. Always welcome. So and then we're doing Barcelona in March. Friday, March 15th is the goal.
March 15th. If you guys are in Spain, come check us out. Yeah. Hit up Sergio if you want to find out how to go. It's going to be amazing. We'll have books there. We'll have seeds. We'll have all kinds of cool stuff.
And who knows, there might be a battle royale there. So
The Battle Royale is amazing.
Yeah, so, man. It's so I do want to start plugging the May 4th Battle Royale, which is going to be OGs.
Nice.
So OG Battle Royale. We're going to do it the weekend of the Emerald Cup here in the Bay Area. Location TBD, but that is happening. So if you want to compete in the Battle Royale with OGs, it's happening.
Yeah, everyone's going to be in the Bay Area because March 4th and 5th is when the Emerald Cup is. So may the 4th be with you.
That's it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, man. Awesome. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to doing this again.
Appreciate you, man.
In Spain.
Hell yeah.
Thanks.